First, renowned economist Kwame Pienim says Ghanaians will bear the full burden of the country's economic crisis in the first quarter of next year. At an annual leadership lecture series at the University of Professional Studies, Accra, he predicted that the banking sector would be severely impacted.
Ghana is currently under its 18th IMF program since independence. The country is waiting with bated breath for the approval of the board of the IMF in order to access the second tranche of $600 million under the program. Currently, the country is negotiating with its external creditors for debt restructuring. Speaking on reimagining Ghana's development trajectory for the next 33 years towards its 100th independence anniversary, economist Kwame Pienim bemoaned the inconsistency with the growth trajectory of the economy and predicted hard times in the first quarter of next year.
Our banks are in trouble. They have to make up additional capital. Ghana Commercial Bank looking for additional capital to make up the minimum capital adequacy ratios. By the first quarter of next year, we'll find out that the banks are laying off people. The banks will have less profit. Taxes will also go down. So the seriousness of the magnitude of the problems we face will come in the first quarter. And this is why it is important that all of us decide we need to change course.
He also singled out the election of district chief executives as one of the policy initiatives that will ensure real development across the country.
An elected district chief executive, repackaged, will make sure we have 265 centers of initiative for development. Not all of us sitting under the Jubilee House tree, waiting for manna to fall. Only one center thinking for us.
UPSA awarded him for his contribution towards national development. The thoughts of an elderly statesman on the development trajectory for the next 33 years, culminating in Ghana's centenary celebrations. Duke Bento Poku, TV3 News, UPSA, Accra.
Well, economist Professor Godfred Bokpin said Ghana's economy does not have the elements to fully recover anytime soon. Now, according to him, claims that the country has turned the corner with regard to the economic growth are far from the reality. Speaking at a roundtable discussion on accountability and transparency, he described the current state of the economy as just a journey.
Ghana's ability to pass the IMF program review for the second tranche of the bailout could trigger extra financial support from the World Bank and other donor partners. While acknowledging the relative stability the country is currently enjoying, Professor Bokpin stressed the need for consistency in maintaining the gains made.
Usually when you are talking about economic transformation, inclusive productivity growth, it takes time. It takes time. So it's important that we have a long-term view to things and doing the right things consistently. Some of the progress will come little by little, some will come a bit bigger in the first phase and the rest of them, but how do we put all of these things together?
According to Professor Godfred Bokpin, the economic stability of the country will take some time. For instance, he observes the current challenges in Ghana's external debt restructuring is largely to blame for the delayed release of the second tranche of the IMF money, which he believes could further worsen the already, difficult challenges that Ghanaians are facing.
We have not turned the corner. We are hanging. The relative stability we are seeing has a lot of risk. The uncertainty with the restructuring of the external debt tells you that things are not well anchored. And it also tells you why the IMF is unwilling to approve the review for us to get the 600 million, because the 600 million alone is not enough to close the gap.
Other experts have also argued for robust taxation policies that could help in Ghana's revenue mobilization drive.
We should diversify the tax mix. We seem to be concentrating in only one area. Natural resources, let's tax them. Let's take everything from them. When they collapse, there will be nothing left. How are we looking at other sectors? Days of kwani budget making is gone. Discuss with us. Discussing with the people does not mean if they reject it, you can't do it. You only put them on notice.
Now, away from the economy, TV signals to your homes and offices will be cut from next year because broadcasters have failed to pay for the use of digital terrestrial television DTT platform. Now, the Communications Minister Ursula Owusu-Ekufo, who gave the warning, says government cannot bear the cost of operating the platform despite multiple notices to media houses.
Tamale South MP Haruna Idrisu early this month asked the Speaker to hold the Minister to Parliament to answer questions on the whole Vodafone deal. On Monday, the Minister with full emphasis stated government's position.
Mr. Speaker, the government of Ghana has no plans of selling its 30% shareholding in Ghana Telecommunications Company Limited. Vodafone Ghana, which holds 70%, has transferred its stake to the Telecel Group in February 2023. Under the shareholders' agreement, the consent of the minority shareholder is not required for Vodafone Ghana to transfer or to sell its shareholding in Ghana Telecommunications Company Limited. Consent is not required under the terms of the shareholders' agreement.
Still, on the communications sector, government is seeking to pull the plugs on the digital terrestrial television channel. But Ningo Prampram MP Son George sought clarity on if the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association have been engaged far enough. The minister said the time has come.
They have constituent members who are broadcasters on the DTT platform, but none of them have paid a peswa to date for being hosted on the platform. So it is not correct to state that any entity being hosted on the platform has paid for being hosted on it. They have not. There is actually matters pending in court because they have been notified. Others are adamant that government should continue to pay. But my answer is clear. The government says it cannot continue to pay for it. So if they do not pay for it, unfortunately, we may find ourselves in the situation where we cannot receive TV broadcast signals because the platform will be shut down for non-payment of the operational expenses that it incurs.
Now, still on this issue, the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, Cecil Sunkomil, says the delay in payment of the DTT fees is because further consultation is needed to agree on the terms amongst stakeholders. He says the issue is in court as the association awaits final determination.
So we have clear laws and procedures in terms of how these things are established. Let's remember that the DTT platform is a single, I'll call it monopolistic platform for the country, which is a national platform. Therefore, the rates and fees should be determined through the right channels. We have had the ministry try to propose fees. There were actually two fees that were proposed. One is the contribution links and one is the national distribution. We'll discuss that later. But we actually said the process at which this was done was not proper. So we asked that this should be done properly. We forward this, we actually captured this in the press release we did last year. And then we also had a meeting with the Select Committee, Parliamentary Select Committee for Communications on this issue last year. There hasn't been a follow-up response yet, but basically right after the meeting, and there was some kind of agreement that the right procedure should be looked at. It was followed up with the minister issuing invoices to stations of some figure. Okay, I think it was initially proposed to 15th and it came to 10,000 and invoices were issued. But this was not according to the legal procedure. The minister's mandate to issue rates and charges is not what persists in this country. And there are a couple of other issues in terms of who is managing the platform. The actual policy for digital migration is still hanging because after our last court case that we won, part of the policy was expunged. And therefore, we expected the ministry to judge again with the industry players, the stakeholders, and then come up with a new policy which would have even embodied fees and rates. All this, unfortunately, is still hanging, but because of the threat of invoices, which was an instruction which came from the minister to a company that we did not know where exactly. We knew the name of the company, but we didn't know how it was constituted. So we proceeded to court.
On to some more stories, and there's more pressure on government to either renegotiate or terminate its lithium deal with Barari DV Limited. The Christian Council, the Office of the National Chief Imam, and a member of the Council of State are the latest to kick against the deal, urging Parliament not to ratify the deal. Now, speaking at a roundtable at the behest of the IEA, the interest groups demanded scrutiny from Parliament over the agreement.
So Ghana has signed a 15-year lease agreement with BV Barari Mining Company for the exploitation of lithium in the country. According to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, Ghana has a 30% participation with 10% royalties, which, according to the ministry, is a novelty. But the roundtable here at the Institute of Economic Affairs says the deal is not in the interest of Ghanaians.
This lithium agreement is not in the interest of Ghana. That's my view. And if you all agree with me, then let us make a statement in support of the IEA to say that we do not think that this agreement is in the interest of Ghana and that we need to relook at this matter. Let us tell whoever is signing this document, and I don't even want to condemn our MPs. We will caution them and advise them to do what is what? Right. What is in the interest of Ghana.
The religious leaders have asked Parliament to immediately refuse the deal and ask for a relook.
The mineral resources of our country does not belong to us alone, but it belongs to the children unborn. Even as at that time, this point was made. Once the mineral resources of our country are supposed to be kept in trust, those who manage it do not own it. That's what it means. They are accountable to the largest structure of the society. And for them to engage in any contract, there must be a certain engagement where the people are satisfied.
We cannot, as a nation, sit down and let this also go down the drain and let people take it away for us to suffer, our people to suffer. I think that what we ought to do is to take this agreement, look at it critically, come out with what we would need. Just as a friend said, the 100% should be on the table. That this is what Ghanaians need. And then when we are looking at it, it should inure to the benefit of Ghanaians.
Former Chief Justice Sufaya Akufu is calling for a national document on the exploitation of mineral resources in the country to guide exploitations in the future.
There should be Ghana's policy on the exploitation. I like the word exploitation because it means you have it and you are now making the most of it. Yes, so the extraction, the processing, the production, the manufacture, everything. There should be a policy that is declared so that any agreement that's going to be signed or ratified henceforth, and that includes this one because it hasn't been ratified yet, yes, must at least have a particular framework which is a far departure from the colonial structure.
The roundtable has also said that in the next 7 days it is going to petition Parliament and the presidency for the right thing to be done when it comes to the mining of lithium in the country. Grace Hamwajiman, TV3 News, IEA, Accra.
Well, still on lithium, a pressure group, Mass Action for Sustainable Development, is requesting Parliament not to ratify the lithium mining lease agreement if brought before the House. He was addressing a news conference in Accra.
In Ghana, we are blessed to have both, or we are blessed to have lithium from both sources. We must therefore avert the recurrence of the tragedy that has characterized the mining of gold, diamond, and related minerals in our country. The story of how gold has become a somewhat curse to our republic is it's common knowledge. Everybody knows how, instead of gold propelling our economy, has become an albatross around our necks. So in order that we don't repeat the tragedy of gold and related minerals, we need, as a matter of urgency, to pay attention to the issue of lithium. So it is against this background that we find the mining lease agreement between Government of Ghana and Barari DV Ghana Limited unacceptable and not fit for purpose. We need to do an amendment in order to capture all of these, because this is the future, and Ghana cannot afford to gamble with this future. Again, royalty regime of processed lithium, as I've mentioned, would all be captured in such an amendment. And again, like I said, the amended Minerals and Mining Act gives the minister the power to introduce regulation through an LI to determine royalty rates. So if we are amending the act, the minister is also required, and we would impress upon him to introduce an LI or a regulation that would set specifically the royalty rate, not say 10%, which is not backed by anything, because in future somebody can decide to lower the rate. But the law allows you to set a specific rate by coming with a regulation that would do that. Once that is done, we are secure, all investors are clear, because as it stands now, investors are not certain what the royalty rate would be in future. For this particular agreement, it is 10%. It might be more or it might be less in future. But we need to give clarity and certainty to businesses that when you are investing in lithium, our royalty rate is this. Government is proposing 13%. I feel we can negotiate to 15%. But if we were to even stop at the 13%, make sure that it is covered by the relevant legislation so that investors are clear and Ghanaians can calculate how much proceeds or benefits they are expecting from lithium. And the latter solution, which I have mentioned, has to do with having an entirely new legislation. This would mean that we would have clear and specific provisions on royalty rates, carried interest, which is free, or so I would say free carried interest, equity concerns, local participation, and value addition arrangements, all contained in a new legislation.
Well, the minority in Parliament has written to the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, asking that he indicates his availability to receive a petition seeking his removal. Now, it will be recalled that the minority in October this year demanded the resignation of the governor and his deputies, alleging that they had contributed to Ghana's economic woes. Now, a petition was, however, not submitted as the governor was unavailable. The minority says it's ready to hand over the petition and want to know when the governor will read and accept it. Well, that's how we wrap up the 6 a.m. news here on TV3. My name is Judith Brown. We'll go for a short break and we'll be back with the rest of New Day. Good morning.